Hi, this is Catherine. This is Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Wildberry Black Tea, which is a very nice tea, very tasty, but also could be had iced, which I will probably start doing soon because it is getting hot, which means I'm going to be cranky because now when I film in this room, I will have to turn off the AC very often before I film, which means that I will be getting warmer and warmer, or I will have noise interference. So, but you guys like my crankiness, right? A little bit. So this is Friday Reads, and maybe rant a little bit. Try to keep the ranting down, but I got things to talk about. But let me talk about the books that I've read this past week. I finished Agatha Christie's The Mystery of the Blue Train, but I will save my thoughts on this till I finally get to a tea and mystery. So enough said about that. I also finished another book that has to do with Jane Austen and her writings because, and that is the Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. We have been spoiled this year for Jane Austen books. Jane Austen July is next month. Katie at Books and Things just posted her announcement video, and I am so excited. I'm getting together all my books that I want to read. Yeah, so that's gonna be fun, and movies too. But this could probably become a movie. Actually, I could see that, like the way Guernsey was, Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society. That is a mouthful. And this is kind of a similar book in the sense that it is kind of historical fiction post World War II. Everybody's been affected by things, and they come together in a book-related mission. And of course, it's a little different too. But I'll get out the tiny criticism out of the way, and I don't think this is really a criticism. Is that there were a couple of dialogue lines and reactions here and there that felt less British than I expected, and doesn't mean that it was wrong. It's maybe just my experience, but that's just how I had felt. I also felt that maybe the ending was slightly too tidy, but is that bad? Wasn't Jane Austen quite tidy in her ending? So that works. It really did get me in the mood for reading Jane Austen over. I feel almost ashamed that I call her my favorite writer and favorite novelist at least, and Traffic. And I don't reread her as much as one would think. I mean, I know there's so many other books to read, but still, how can I call myself any kind of expert in Jane Austen when I don't read enough? And these characters, they read other things too. They have access to libraries, every single one of them, whatever their status financially is, but they still read Jane Austen very much over and over again, most of them. So this is basically a group of people from a couple of Americans, but mostly people from the area of near Chawton, where Jane Austen lived at the end of her life, where she also wrote some of my favorite books. And their goal is really to make the cottage where she lived, that was part of her brother's area, his what he owned, his estate, a museum, and to try to get things that would have belonged to her, or at least to her time, and and so that is how it comes together. These are not, most of the people involved are not wealthy. So what are they going to do, and how can they do that? There is thankfully there's a lawyer among their group, but and there are descendants of Jane Austen's brother, even though they're fictional, which I found out later. So I knew that there is a Jane Austen Society, but this is a totally fictionalized. None of the characters are actually people who existed in the Jane Austen Society. I was almost disappointed by that, but I'm okay. A lot of people have lost spouses at some point, and other things in life, lots of disappointments, and their shared love for Jane Austen is just what brings them together, and kind of like Jane Austen Book Club, but not. And I just love this kind of book, I think even though I have reconciled myself to pastiches, to like Jane Austen book sequels, etc., retellings, I still prefer books that most of the time that are kind of based on loving Jane Austen's books, if that makes sense. So very good. Probably for me a 4.5 star. Uh, there was something that happened toward the end that I don't know if the author intended this, but it really, for me, felt like an homage to, I love saying homage, to Emma Thompson's, one of her more famous performances in Sense and Sensibility. And if you guys have read that, let me know if you picked up on that at all and if you agree with me. So that was a good read this week. And, like there was sadness in it, but it wasn't too heavy, which is sometimes nice. And I started, so the next two books I'm going to show you are books that I started. Bertie, The Complete Prince of Wales Mysteries. I'm only reading the first one for now, Bertie and the Tin Man. I like the idea of the Prince of Wales solving mysteries and doing so without other people knowing it, really. So he's writing it first person. I don't know if that's how it's going to continue. I assume so. And it's like he's putting it into a vault for people to discover 100 years later. Kind of like the way Laurie R. King, I think? The one who writes the Mary Russell, I'm forgetting names. The Sherlock Holmes stories. She kind of did something like that, like in other words, found later on to be read by future generations. And so far it seems to ring true with what the little I know about the Prince of Wales at this time. I know a lot about Queen Victoria from reading books about her. Still not an expert, but I know a good deal. And I know a little bit about the Edwardian era, but the definition of what is Edwardian is always a little confusing because his actual reign was about 10 years, and a lot of the behaviors that we associate with the Edwardian era, even the culture, literature, music, whatever, feels like it started a bit earlier when Queen Victoria was technically the queen and empress, actually, but not really much of a public figure anymore. Maybe they were looking to people like of his generation for more of an influence. And it seemed to have ended probably, to me, not so much at his death, but maybe around 1914 when the entire everything changed. So this kind of, I want to see how far it actually fits into what I know about that time period and society. So far, so good. There's a jockey, a famous jockey that is found, that is dead, that dies, and is a presumed suicide. But what else? There seems to be more to it. So an investigation commences. So that could be, I don't know if that's my only mystery of the month, but if so, hopefully it's good. And I only just started 1776 by David McCullough, and so far so good. It seems to be balanced on both sides, which is kind of what you want in history books. So far I'm at 1775, so I feel like I haven't really started yet. We're just in the parts where they're basically arguing everything in Parliament. You've seen those performances, and I mean they still do it now, but it's kind of more interesting when you see the old school powdered wiggish time, where everybody stands up and argues and kind of insults each other a little bit, but always has something to say, and usually people stick to their guns, but some decision is made. So that's what we're basically up to, the meanwhile. So I think it was a pretty good reading week for me. It wasn't a stellar one. Like, I didn't read volumes and volumes, but I mean, come on. And I was going to incorporate now, I thought it'd be fun to do a Friday reads and a book haul, because I gave in and did yet another order. And I thought, I can just stick that together because there are a number of books that I had ordered that could be used for Jane Austen July, and some history books that I want to talk about, even a tea book. But I ordered it from Book Outlet, and it was a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago at this point. So I only feel bad that I'm just such a crazy shopaholic. But this might actually help me stop. There was something that happened in the past few days that made me kind of turned off about Book Outlet, and makes me want to redirect what future money, my book spending money that I have, if I buy more books, which I probably will, because I'm nuts. I want to direct it elsewhere. And I'll just read these things, what happened. So apparently I only went on Book Outlet to order from their books. I didn't really look at their social media parts that much. I think I might have follow them on Facebook at some point. But basically, they had a thing called Vlogger Friends where they worked along with certain, mostly booktubers, who would do their recommendations, etc. And I guess in turn they would do they would promote Book Outlet, because I've seen some videos promoting Book Outlet, which is nothing wrong with that. My issue with Book Outlet always was, okay, the delivery seemed to take a little longer than I'd like because I'm impatient, but mainly because I didn't like the I know they had to do it for reasons, but like this is a book I got from Book Off for $1, but it basically looks pristine, right? There's no dots on any side, but that's what they do. They put and sometimes it's nice and neat, a little on the bottom, which is fine, but then that was my only complaint for ages. But apparently from their vlogger friends were mostly, I guess, white vloggers, and there was one black vlogger friend, and some people thought they wanted to take this up with Book Outlet and say, can we get more? Because I guess that folks online tend to talk amongst themselves, and maybe there were a few that actually did apply and just got turned down, and they were like, well, it's not like we don't want to become a vlogger friend on your page. Wouldn't you want diversity? I guess, So I guess they asked Book Outlet, and Book Outlet came up with hey, look at all these books that we have by black authors and something or other. Okay, fine. But that didn't really answer the question. So Sophia on Twitter said, your response didn't address my concern, which is the lack of diversity on your vlogger friends page. Why is there only one black person on that entire page? How do you plan on fixing that? And it's a valid question. They may not have thought about it themselves actively, the people at Book Outlet, but if someone asks you a question like that in person or on a live stream or something, I can understand maybe coming up with an answer that's not exactly perfect. Right? But you're asked on Twitter where you can actually sit and think, maybe get together with your marketing team, talk on Zoom, say, what, how do we address this? Right? So this was the answer from Book Outlet. Our vlogger friends are chosen based on engagement, following, and content. We maintain a family-friendly appearance, so we do not sign on applicants who swear, post explicit content. Diversity is important, and we have been looking to round out our team with qualified men and women. So, okay, if the deal was that they don't like cursing on their page or whatever, that is one thing. I'm not sure, because I haven't done this myself, but I'm pretty sure that if you went through all the books on their catalog, all the books that they sell, there must be some language in there, right? Personally, I'm not big on cursing. I try not to myself. Doesn't mean I won't read a book that has cursing in it. It's just that it's not my favorite thing. One of my favorite writers does use a lot in his books. I still read it just because I really like his books, but it's not my preference. It's not. But that's not really the point. The point was that they were basically implying that the people who applied who were black were very cursy on their channels, I guess, on their vlogger booktube channels, and that's what they don't like because we're family friendly. Okay, that would imply that the people that you have as vlogger friends do not do that. That they maybe talk about, I don't know, they don't curse. Okay, but it came out that apparently some of the vlogger friends do. Their channels have enough cursing on it to be something that if that were your concern, that would be what you would have a problem with it, and maybe you wouldn't have accepted them. The only difference was that those people were white. So it kind of implied that because you're black, you are not family friendly, and that maybe they didn't mean it that way. I'm not going to go into people's minds. I am only talking from outside perspectives, and that was really badly done. And it would have been badly done at any time to say that, especially without thinking that through, to say something like that. There could have been so many better things, and I will come back to that. So many better things that could have been a response, but to say that, especially this past week or so, it's like, what kind of hole are you living in? So, yeah, so there was an uproar, as there would be, and they had an apology post later on Twitter that said, we're sorry that we have hurt members of the Black community, which was never our intent. In no way do we believe that Black content creators solely produce explicit and non-family friendly content. Well, you kind of imply, but anyway, we recognize the fact that we have a lack of Black vlogger friends and know we can and will do better to add more diverse vloggers to our program. First of all, when you say we're sorry that we have hurt you, even though it is an apology, it's really, we're sorry that you feel that way, which isn't necessarily that your actions were necessarily wrong. It wasn't the best apology, but what gets to me more than anything is the last paragraph. It says, we recognize the fact that we have a lack of Black vlogger friends and know we can and will do better to add more diverse vloggers to our program. When the question was asked, why don't you have, that would have been an okay, maybe not perfect, but an okay answer, right? Oh my goodness. We recognize this and we will do something about it. We're going to work on this. I mean, some action might be taken. Instead of saying something that sounded racist, okay? So, I don't know if you guys have seen this already. If someone's posting hauls from Book Outlet and they don't know about this yet, don't get too uproarious. They just may not know. But, you know, and I'm not going to tell anyone else what to do about this because it's not my place. But it is my place to spend money where I think it should be spent. And I know that I already spend too much money on books. But I'm thinking it's like, you are what you eat, you are what you read, you are also kind of how you spend money, and who you support, you know, who you patronize, whatever has some sort of import. And so I think that my money can be better spent elsewhere. I know that I cannot know every business and what they support and don't support, and I'm not going to go crazy researching everything, but when someone has actually said something like this, I think I can use this finally as my excuse to get off of this binge anyway. So I don't know if I want to say win-win, but you know what I mean. So I'm going to probably stop permanently ordering from Book Outlet. I don't see myself coming back to them. I can't see how they would rectify this, but only time will tell. But that's just, I just feel like my money can be spent in better places. I had, there have been a lot of lists coming out the past week about bookshops that are owned by Black persons, so like to support them. And I had meant to support one particular bookshop. I know I have to have mentioned it at least once on this channel. I could be wrong, but there was a bookshop that opened in April of 2019. I had been watching them online to see when they were going to open, because just any bookshop that opens in New York City I get excited about no matter what. And it is in the Bronx, and it is owned by a person of color, and it is the Lit Bar. So it's a bookshop, and it's got a cafe with events and wine. I mean, that is so bookish, right? It's so good. And my reasons for not going were really because I just never go to the Bronx almost ever. I mean, I think I go to the Bronx slightly more than Staten Island, and I've not really been to Staten Island unless you count the ferry ride to and from. So that was one reason. My other reason, and this is just me, I am a procrastinator. Astoria Bookshop opened up in the summer of 2013. I was dying for a bookshop in Astoria for years. There had been one, but it closed. It was okay, but I had been dying for one in Queens at all. And then finally, this beautiful one opens up a quick walk away from where I live. And I probably took about a year before I went inside. That is, I mean, I think I was going through a not buying as many books anyway phase, but I know I was buying some books. So it just, I don't know what took me so long. And even another bookshop in Queens that opened a couple years ago, Q and Willow Books. It's a little further out in Queens. It took me about 9 months to get there. And that was a record right? So, I mean, Book Off was near where I worked for a number of years before I went there. Uh, so I'm not, for whatever reasons, I hadn't gone to Lit Bar, and I kind of felt bad about that. I was trying to drag a friend with me, but it just never happened. So I saw them on these lists, and I thought, money where your mouth is, and I thought, well, there's also a website called Bookshop. I think it's bookshop.org, and it is, in this time period where no bookshops are open. They may be now in other states, but in New York, there were no bookshops open for months and months. One way of supporting them was to put them on this website where you can order online, and you have all these bookshops on one site. Fantastic. So that's what I did. I ordered something from the Lit Bar, and I will show it to you when it comes in. It's just a start, but I recognize personally that I don't read very diversely. I don't say I don't read at all. It's just that the majority of books that I read are, probably of white authors, and I'm not going to go on, but I also read this and also reading, because then I'm going to sound like George Costanza or Michael Scott. But I know I can definitely improve in that way. So even a little improvement is something, I guess, I hope. Anyway, so I thought I'd share that with you. I don't like to get into things like this, but I also think that it will explain to you why I've stopped using Book Outlet, after months and months of going on about it, and how, and getting excited about it and whatever. And I'm not going to take down my past hauls because they were fun, and that, but I don't know. It was kind of, it left me, I mean, among all the other things that are happening, that are messed up, but that really left me with a bad taste in my mouth when I heard it. And, yeah, so let me know what you guys think, if you want to. You don't have to, of this situation, and also the books that I've been reading lately. Hope you've been having a good week. Hope that it's not too hot where you're at. Unless you like the heat, then yay, I hope it's hot where you're at. So this is Catherine, Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely and tea-filled day. Bye.